Hi, I'm Logan. I'm 30 and I run my own fashion brand. A little while ago, I started dating an amazing girl whose dad just couldn't stand me and was a big hater. He had no clue about my company until one awkward family gathering. And let's just say all of it opened my eyes to being upfront and not putting up with people's crap. So, originally I'm from San Antonio, but I bounced over to New York for college, and it was a game changer for my brand. Back in the day, my childhood was filled with creativity. My mom was a paid artist and used to paint portraits and whatnot, and I guess that is where I get my knack for creativity from, because growing up, I was deeply invested in art and design and used to spend hours sketching outfits and dreaming up new styles. And even though I did not have all the fancy clothes or designer labels, I still found my groove in fashion, and I would experiment with different looks and fabrics. Mom, can I show you something? Of course, sweetheart. What is it? I drew some sketches. I want to be a fashion designer when I grow up. Oh, Logan, these are wonderful. Look at the detail on this dress and the creativity in these designs. You have got real talent, kid. Do you really think so? Absolutely. You have such a unique perspective and imagination. You know, when I was your age, I used to love drawing too, so I understand how important it is to follow your passion. But what if people think it's silly? Sweetheart, never let anyone tell you that your dreams are silly. You have a gift, and it's worth pursuing. And hey, even if it takes a little while to make it happen, I will be right here cheering you on every step of the way. Thanks, Mom. I'm going to keep drawing and designing no matter what anyone says. That's the spirit, my angel. I can't wait to see where your creativity takes you. High school was a different story, though. I got a lot of hate for my hobbies, and the bullies called me all sorts of names, saying I was not academic enough for being into fashion and all, but I didn't give them enough importance. I was not about to let them dim my shine or dictate what I could and couldn't be into, and eventually, all their gossip faded into the background. Then, as I hit my teenage years, my love for fashion went into overdrive. My day started with diving into magazines, checking out runway shows, and scrolling through fashion blogs. I soaked up inspirations from designers worldwide, and I knew I wanted to make a career out of this passion. So when college rolled around, I had my sights set on FIT in New York City. But I did not stop there. I hustled hard to get hands-on experience in the fashion world and interned at local boutiques, crashed fashion events, mingled at networking meets, and made sure to soak up all the knowledge I could from industry pros. After I wrapped up school, I was itching to dive into my dream of launching my own fashion brand, and truth be told, it was one heck of a journey that was filled with ups and downs plus passion, creativity, and determination. At the start, it was not all rainbows and sunshine, and I had to hustle hard and face multiple challenges like searching hard for quality materials on a tight budget and figuring out how to get the word out without a fat wallet for ads. But I was not about to give up and started creating even more designs that mixed classy vibes with a modern twist. I wanted to redefine fashion for men and give them the manliest look ever. Slowly but surely, things started to pick up, and thanks to some buzz from word of mouth and with the help of up-and-coming models and influencers, I started building a solid crew of fashion fans who dug what I was putting out, which was a sustainable style with attention to detail. Then, as demand for my clothes grew, I saw my chance to level up, so I invested in better production methods and brought on some ace-level people to help keep things running smoothly. With a boost from social media and online shops, I reached even more people, showed off my latest gear, and chatted directly with customers. And with this, each new collection drop got more buzz, and my confidence shot through the roof. And since I had a solid crew of loyal fans backing me up, I decided to branch out and create different fashion lines. I first started with accessories, then footwear, and then even fragrances. Plus, with a little help from Insta, YouTube, and TikTok, celebs and influencers also started jumping on the bandwagon and started taking my brand to the next level. Now fast forward to my 5th anniversary bash, my brand was on fire. People all over the globe were rocking my gear, and the investors started showing real interest in my business. The next thing I knew, my brand was valued at a cool $20 million. I got to say that it had been one wild ride. From sketching in my tiny apartment to running a global fashion empire, it had been a journey fueled by hustle, heart, and a whole lot of belief in myself. And it felt so good. But at the same time, my personal life was totally nil, because balancing the demands of running, juggling a booming fashion company while trying to navigate the whole romance thing is not exactly a walk in the park. but life has a funny way of throwing you a curveball when you least expect it. And so entered Violet. We crossed paths at a club, all thanks to a friend in common, and from the get-go, I was hooked on her. Her vibe, her smarts, and even that laugh of hers were a total game changer. But turns out the main issue was that Violet was already with someone, and it was such a heartbreak. Still, I couldn't shake this feeling that she was something special and someone worth sticking around for. Fast forward a few months, and life was still moving at warp speed. Between deadlines and endless meetings, I was barely keeping my head above water. Then, out of the blue, word came in that Violet was no longer committed, and believe me or not, it was a sign from the universe. So I figured it was now or never and mustered up the guts to hit her up and was ready to tell her about how I felt. But I decided to keep the CEO thing on the down low because I did not want it to get in the way of us. I didn't want Violet to like me because of my money, but simply me, and so, when we finally met for coffee, I introduced myself simply as Logan, a factory worker with a passion for design, and nothing more. Hey Violet, so good to finally meet up. Thanks for making time. Of course, Logan. I have been looking forward to this. So tell me, what do you do? Oh, just your average Joe. I work at a factory during the day, but my real passion is fashion. I love sketching designs and playing around with fabrics in my spare time. Wow, that is really cool. I had no idea you were into fashion. What kind of stuff do you design? A little bit of everything, really. I'm all about blending classic styles with a modern twist. It's just something I have always been passionate about. That is amazing. It's so refreshing to meet someone with such a creative spirit. You must have some really interesting stories from working at the factory. Yeah, definitely. It's a pretty diverse crowd there, which keeps things interesting. But enough about me. What about you? What do you do when you are not hanging out at coffee shops with mysterious fashion enthusiasts? Oh, the usual. I work a 9-to-5 at a tech company, but I'm always looking for new ways to challenge myself creatively. I have been thinking about taking up painting again, actually. That sounds awesome. You should totally go for it. There is nothing quite like expressing yourself through art. My mother used to do it all the time. Definitely. Well, this has been great, Logan. Thanks for the coffee and the conversation. We should do it again sometime. Absolutely. Anytime you want to chat about fashion or anything else, you know where to find me. I will keep that in mind. Take care, Logan. So, there I was, spinning this tale of being just a regular old factory worker, and I seriously wondered if Violet would even give a second thought to a guy like me. But to my surprise, she did not even bat an eye at my humble job, and we hit it off right away, and shot the breeze like we had known each other for ages. But deep down, I knew I was playing with fire and had promised myself I would come clean if things got really serious between us, but I'm truly being honest, I chickened out. Every time I thought about dropping the bomb, I chickened out and worried that she would bolt on me if she found out the truth. And so I kept quiet and hoped against hope that someday, somehow I would muster up the guts to spill the beans and beg for her forgiveness. But until then, I just kept riding the wave and hoped for the best. So Violet's background was like a different universe compared to mine. She grew up in the restaurant business, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of her dad's chain of eateries, while I was a single child who grew up in a rather lonely house with my mom. Violet's weekends and holidays were also completely different from mine and were spent in the thick of it all, like greeting customers and making sure every meal was top-notch, etc. Violet did love these things, as she told me, but she did not want to make a career out of it and had big dreams and a brain for tech. So, she dove into the world of computer science, snagged a sweet job at a decent tech company, and worked from 9 to 5. And fashion was more of a distant daydream for Violet. Like, sure, she admired it from afar, but she never really wanted it like I did. And because of that, our worlds never collided, and my brand, which could have been making waves, never got discovered. On the other hand, Violet and her family were living in their own little bubble and were completely clueless about me and my little brand. So, Violet and I were dating for quite a while now, and it was about time for me to meet the parents, which was a big moment that had me feeling both stoked and freaked out. I mean, I really wanted to impress them and reveal my real identity, but again, I thought the whole thing would complicate things between me and Violet, and so I decided to stick with the factory worker story because I was truly worried that my real thing might overshadow the love that was blooming between Violet and me. And so we rolled up to her parents' place, and I have to admit, I was sweating bullets. When I stepped inside, Violet's mom, Yana, greeted us with open arms and a warm smile and instantly put me at ease. But her dad, Hudson, was not exactly that welcoming and gave me the side eye from the start. All night I tried my best to play it cool and laughed at Hudson's jokes, nodded along to his stories, and tried to show him some respect, but it felt like he was sizing me up the whole time and was judging me for not being some big shot. Yana, though, was a total sweetheart, and she actually seemed interested in hearing about my factory gig and asked all sorts of questions and made me feel right at home. Her warmth was like a breath of fresh air in the midst of all that tension. Logan, it's so wonderful to finally meet you. Violet has told us so much about you. Thanks, Yana. It's great to meet you too. Please come in and make yourself at home. Can I get you something to drink? Oh, I'm good for now, thanks. All right then, so Violet tells me you work at a factory. What's that like? Yeah, I do. It's actually pretty interesting. I'm involved in the production side of things, working with machinery and all that. That sounds fascinating. It must keep you busy. Yeah, definitely. There's always something new happening, which keeps things exciting. I can imagine. It's important to find fulfillment in your work. What drew you to that line of work? Well, it's something I have been doing for a while now. I guess I just enjoy working with my hands and seeing the tangible results of my efforts. That is wonderful. It's clear that you take pride in what you do. Violet is lucky to have someone so dedicated. Thank you, Gianna. I really appreciate that. Of course, dear. Now, let's all sit down and enjoy dinner together. I have prepared your favorite dish, Violet. I hope you both enjoy it. Sounds great. Thanks again, Gianna. Hudson was like a stone wall the entire evening and constantly showed his disapproval in every little thing I did. He did not even try to hide how much he looked down on my gig as a factory worker, and his comments were dripping with snark. But I was not about to let his negativity ruin my vibe with Violet. He was also constantly stared at by Yana and Violet for his comments, but he did not stop. As the night wrapped up and we said our goodbyes, I could not shake this feeling of letdown over Hudson's attitude. But at the same time, it lit a fire under me, and I was determined to prove him wrong and to show him that my worth was not tied to some fancy job title, but to the love and respect I had for his daughter. Later on, Violet filled me in on the blow-up she had with her dad. Turns out he had a real beef with me being just a factory worker, but I was not sweating it. I had a gut feeling that once he found out who I really was, he would be eating his words. But for now, I was not in any rush to spill the beans, especially not to win over some dude who could not see past his own prejudices. No matter what I did, it seemed like Hudson's dislike for me just kept growing. Every time we crossed paths, whether it was at some family shindig or grabbing dinner, he did not even try to hide how much he could not stand me. His digs and snide comments were like little daggers, leaving me feeling pretty lousy and wondering if I would ever win him over. One time that really sticks out is during this big family barbecue at Violet's parents' place. We were all chilling by the grill, flipping burgers and shooting the breeze, when out of nowhere, Hudson decided to take a swipe at my job. He was basically saying that I was no match for his daughter and addressed me constantly in a way that totally made me out like I was some kind of disappointment. That hurt, but I sucked it up and slapped on a grin and pretended like it was no big deal. No way was I going to let him ruin the vibe. So Logan, still slaving away at that factory of yours, huh? I chuckled forcibly at his comment. Yeah, you know how it is. Have to pay the bills somehow. Must be tough though, huh? I mean, compared to the kind of guy my daughter deserves. Ah, come on, Mr. Hudson. It's not all bad. Keeps me on my toes, you know? Yeah, I bet. But let us be real here, factory workers. That is not exactly what I had in mind for Violet's future husband. I clenched my jaw so hard but tried to be normal because I could not afford to lose my calm. Well, lucky for me, Violet has got her own mind, right? She knows what she wants. Yeah, we will see about that. Violet quickly interrupted our conversation and tried to diffuse the tension. Dad, come on. Let's not ruin the barbecue with all this talk. Yeah, let's just enjoy the food and the company, huh? Fine, fine. But don't think I have forgotten, Logan. You may be here now, but I am keeping my eye on you. Wouldn't expect anything less, Mr. Hudson. After all, got to make sure I'm living up to those high standards of yours, right? Even when it seemed like we were all chilling at these cozy family dinners, Hudson still managed to find ways to throw shade my way. He would drop these little digs about where I came from or what I had studied, like he was trying to knock me down a peg or two. And even when it was just the three of us, his vibe towards me was ice cold. He would straight up act like I was not even there and ignored everything I said like it did not matter. His silence said it all. It was like a neon sign flashing that said, "I don't approve," in big, bold letters. And no matter how hard Violet tried to shut down his negativity and steer the convo in a different direction, his passive-aggressive remarks hung in the air like a bad smell and made the whole vibe super awkward. But me and Violet did not back away because of it. It was our life, not his, and he could just tough it out. So, there I was, gearing up for another family gathering at Violet's place. Gianna had been super cool about it and would always apologize for Hudson's antics and told me not to take his nonsense to heart. Even for Thanksgiving, she gave me the heads up to steer clear of him and just brush off anything he said, and I was all for avoiding drama, so that was exactly what I did. But man, this time around, things went south real quick. The vibe was off from the get-go, with Hudson looking like he had just swallowed a lemon. I was just casually talking with Violet's brother when her Uncle Matt strolled in and looked at me with curious eyes and inquired about my presence. Before I could even respond, Hudson swooped in like a storm cloud and boomed out my introduction for all to hear. "Hey there, who is this?" "Oh, hi, I'm Logan. Just here for Thanksgiving with V." Just before I could speak further, Hudson interrupted me out of nowhere. "Oh, Logan here? He is just our servant for the day, helping out with the turkey and serving." "Oh, got you. Nice to meet you, Logan." I forced a smile and replied to him, "Yeah, nice to meet you too, Matt." I saw Hudson chuckle at my response, and it was so clear that he was enjoying this a bit too much. "Well, I will leave you boys to it. Logan, back to work now. We do not pay you to stand around chatting." I clenched my jaw but kept my cool. Right, of course. At that moment, I felt a flush of embarrassment and disbelief wash over me, my cheeks burning with humiliation as I struggled to maintain my composure. The weight of his words bore down on me like a heavy burden, threatening to crush my spirit. Yana heard the whole thing and was totally flustered by Hudson's bold move and tried to speak up, her voice shaking with rage. But he was straight up ignoring her and was just basking in his own arrogance while the rest of us stood there feeling like we had been punched in the face. Violet, bless her heart, was ready to go off on her dad, but I managed to stop her before things got too heated. Even though every fiber of my being was screaming to let loose on Hudson, I kept my cool. I knew throwing down right then would only make things worse. But trust me, I was simmering with anger and was ready to show Hudson who he was messing with. I mean, enough was enough. And just when I thought things could not get any crazier, Violet's cousin, Maverick, swooped in out of nowhere and dropped a bombshell, who it turns out was also listening to the whole conversation. "You are a servant. But I read about your $20 million business in iGazine." Maverick straight up yelled it out like he was announcing the halftime show at the Super Bowl. The whole place went quiet, and I was standing there feeling like a deer in headlights. Violet, Yana, and the whole group were literally staring at me like, what the heck? And Hudson looked like he had seen a ghost. His face went whiter than a sheet, and you could tell he was trying to wrap his head around what Maverick had just said. But the silver lining was that I finally had to come clean about who I really was. And let me tell you, even though I was worried about how Violet would react and how the tables would turn, I felt pretty good dropping that bombshell on Hudson that I was a pretty big shot. And then I owned up to the whole thing of being the CEO of a fashion brand, and my brand recently got featured in a magazine for killing it in the fashion game for having trendy clothes and super fast growth. When I finally spilled the truth about who I really was, it was like a bomb went off. Everyone's faces were all over the place. Some were shocked and others were straight up impressed. Hudson, who used to look down on me like I was dirt, was frozen in place and tried to wrap his head around the fact that he had totally misjudged me and could not believe it at all. Yana, who had been silently backing me up the whole time, let out this big gasp like she could not believe what she was hearing. But the one person whose reaction I was most worried about was Violet, and when I looked at her, she was like a mix of shocked and hurt. I knew I had some explaining to do, but she was not ready to hear it just then, and so I decided that when the whole gathering would be over, I would explain it all to her. After everyone else went home, it was just me and Violet's family left. I tried to talk to her and explain everything, but she was not having it. "Hey Violet, can we talk?" He looked at me so coldly I thought I had no chance, but then she finally replied. What is there to talk about, Logan? I thought I knew you, but it turns out you have been keeping this huge secret from me. I know, and I am sorry. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. But I was scared, babe. Scared that if you knew who I really was, you would only see me as my title. You don't get it, Logan. It is not about who you are or what you do. It's about trust. I thought we had that, but now I'm not so sure. I get it, I do. And I messed up big time. But please just hear me out. I never meant to deceive you. I just wanted you to like me for me, not for some fancy title or job. It's just, it hurts, you know, to find out like that in front of everyone. I know, and I'm sorry for that. But please believe me when I say that my feelings for you are real. I did not mean to hurt you, V. I just wanted to protect our relationship. Fine, Logan, I'll hear you out. But you better have a good explanation. After telling everything to Violet, I vowed to never again let fear and insecurity come between us, to always be honest and true, no matter the cost. So suddenly Hudson, Mr. Grumpy Pants himself, starts acting all buddy-buddy with me. Like out of nowhere, the dude went a complete 180 and started treating me with all this kindness and respect. It was so weird. All of a sudden, he was all up in my business and constantly asked about my work and acted like he was genuinely interested. And it was not just at family gatherings either. Every time we crossed paths, he would make a beeline for me, like he could not wait to chat me up. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for burying the hatchet and moving on, but something about his sudden change of heart just did not sit right with me. I mean, the dude went from zero to hero in record time. Call me paranoid, but I could not help but wonder what his angle was. Alright, so I'm not usually one to go snooping around, but something about Hudson's sudden change of heart had me feeling kind of suspicious. So I did a little digging just to see what I could find. And man, what I uncovered was wild. Turns out our boy Hudson had a little secret gambling addiction. Yep, it was right. He had been blowing all his cash on bets and stuff, and the big news was that he had lost like 3 of his family's restaurants because of it. And he also had not told a soul about it. I was floored when I heard this. I mean, I knew Hudson had some issues, but this was next level and I could not just sit back and do nothing about it. I saw this as a chance to show him the consequences of his actions, to teach him a lesson about the stuff he had been pulling on me. So I made the call to spill the beans to his family. It was not going to be pretty, but I figured it was the right thing to do. Time to take old Hudson down a peg or two. So, I decided to round up the fam and spill the beans about Hudson's little gambling problem. I mean, it was not going to be pretty, but he needed to face it all. And let me tell you, it was intense. There were tears and there were shouts. It was like a soap opera up in there, but I knew it had to be done. Hudson needed to own up to his mistakes, and the family needed to know what was really going on. Of course, when Hudson found out I was the one who spilled the beans, all hell broke loose. He was furious. I'm talking veins popping, steam coming out of his ears, kind of mad. He came at me with everything he had, cursing and yelling like there was no tomorrow. But I was not going to back down, because sometimes you got to face the fire to do what is right. Look, Mr. Hudson, I know this isn't easy to hear, but your family needed to know the truth. You had no right, Logan. None at all. I did what I thought was best. You have been lying to them for too long, and it needs to stop. And who appointed you the judge and jury, huh? Do you think you are better than me just because you run some fancy fashion brand? This isn't about me, Mr. Hudson. It's about you and the mess you have made. Oh, spare me the righteous act, Logan. You think you are so high and mighty, but you are just a fraud. Watch it, Mr. Hudson. You may not like what I did, but at least I own up to my mistakes. Can you say the same? Hudson went so out of control that he literally started stepping closer and towering over me, but I stood my ground. You have got a lot of nerve, you know that? And you have got a lot to answer for, Mr. Hudson. Maybe it's time you face the consequences of your actions for once in your life. So, there I was, facing off against Hudson. His anger was practically radiating off him like heat waves on a scorching summer day. But I was not about to back down. I knew I had done the right thing, and I was not going to let his insults get under my skin. I stayed cool as a cucumber, even as he hurled insults my way, because I knew that deep down he knew I was right, and that was all that mattered. And let me tell you, seeing the shock on his face when he realized he had been caught out, that was priceless. It was like a light bulb went off in his head and he finally got it, that I was not to be messed with because my revenge game came strong.